Hello and welcome to this lesson about operations with decimals. The learning target of this video is adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing decimals. So let's talk about the core ideas associated with each of these. First of all, we're going to kind of break it into three different sections. We'll talk about addition and subtraction, so add/subtract, and what are some of the core ideas with adding and subtracting. And this one is fairly straightforward, which is you just have to line everything up. So line everything up vertically too. So by its placeholder. So the tens are lined up with the tens, the hundreds are lined up with the hundreds, the ones are lined up with the ones, and then the tenths, the hundredths, so on and so forth. So line everything up vertically, and then it's just about adding and subtract normally. So add, subtract normally. All right, next one, let's talk about multiplying. This one's a little more complicated. So the core idea with multiplying, you have to be able to count spaces after the decimal, because that comes into play a little bit later. And then after that, just like with adding and subtracting, it's multiply like normal. And then finally, for division, this one's complicated as well. Division. The core idea behind division, the divisor, which is the number that is doing the dividing. That's not how you spell divisor. Oops, let me make that neater. The divisor cannot have a decimal. Cannot be a decimal or have a decimal. And so what that means is that you have to bump the decimal over. Okay, so those are the core ideas that we have with adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing by decimals. Now let's put them to practice. So when we talk about add and subtract, again, the core idea here is line stuff up to keep it simple. And so let's say we have, for example, 38.49 plus 16.7. Now, what we have to do is not look at it like this. We have to write it as a vertical problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross that out. I'm going to put a plus sign here. And I'm going to line stuff up. 16.7. I'm not going to push the 16.7 over. This is a common mistake that students will make, is they'll try to they'll put the 16.7 as far right as they can. You do not want to do that. Everything lines up with its place value. So the 7 is a tenth, and so it lines up with the 4, which is a tenth in the first number. 6 is the ones, it lines up with the ones in the first number, and then the 1 is a 10, and it lines up with the 3, which is the tens in the first number. So you have to line them all up vertically. Now, it's all about just adding and subtracting as normal. So here, there's a phantom 0 here. So 9 plus 0 is 9. 7 plus 4 is 11. 6 plus 8 is 14, plus that 1 is 5. And then there's a carry a 1 there. 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And so our final answer is 55.19. And going back to the idea of, line your stuff up, notice how the decimals form a nice vertical line. That's our indicator that we've done this correctly. And so there's our final answer. Now let's use those exact same numbers but make a subtraction problem out of it. So let's say we have 38.49 minus 16.7. So again, what we want to do is not look at it like this, but line it up. 16.7. And if we have an empty space, we can fill that in with a 0. And now it's just doing the exact opposite of what we were doing. And lining it up is key. I just cannot stress that enough. So now we're going 9 minus 0, which is 9. 4 minus 7, we have to borrow. Make that a 7. Think of this as 14. 14 minus 7 is 7. 7 minus 6 is 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. And there we go. And again, notice this nice vertical line of the decimals, showing us that we've done this correctly. So when it comes to adding and subtracting, it's all about lining stuff up and then applying the numbers, whether you're adding or subtracting them, to the other number of the same place value. Now, multiply and divide. For multiply, we needed to count spaces. So let me show you how that's going to come into play. Let's say we have something like, excuse me, for example, 202.3 times 1.05. What we're going to do is count how many spaces there are after the decimal, how many numbers there are. And what I'm seeing is 3. So 3 spaces. I'm going to put that off to the side. Just like I did with addition and subtraction, I'm going to get rid of that and I'm going to make it a vertical problem. Now, when you're doing it vertically, it doesn't matter if you do it or if you line everything up. You just have to put the digits there. So 1.05. And at this point in time, we ignore the decimal because we've already addressed the decimal over here by counting 3 spaces. And so now it's just a multiplication problem. So we have 5 times 3 for 5. Carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10. 1. And then there's another carry a 1 there. So here we'll get 5 times 0 is 0, but 1 again, could carry the 1, and then 0, 1. Then we put a 0 there and go, just put a bunch of zeros. So 0 times 3 is 0, 0 times 2 is 0, 0 times 0 is 0, 0 times 2 is also 0. Put 2 more zeros so we can address the 1, and then we go 3, 2, 0, 2. And now we add all these numbers together. So 5 plus 0 is 5. 1 plus 0 is 1. 1 plus 0 plus 3 is 4. 0 plus 0 plus 2 is 2. 1 plus 0 is 1. And then 2. Now I go back to this. 3 spaces. I start at the far left, or far right, and I bump over 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. That is where I put my decimal. So my final answer to all of this is 212.415. Box it, walk away. Now let's talk about division. And with division, the divisor cannot have a decimal. So let me rewrite this. No decimal divisor. And again, the divisor is the number that's doing the dividing. So let's look at this example here. Number 1, 45.82 divided by 2.9. Like we've done so far is we want to rearrange this, and we're going to want to put this in long division form. So 45.82 and then 2.9. Now, when I'm saying that the divisor cannot have a decimal, that's this 2.9. That's our divisor right here. I got to get rid of that decimal. And the way I do that is I bump it over. And however many spots I bump over the decimal on the left or by the divisor, I have to do the same thing under the division sign. So that goes over 1 spot right there. And this is where my decimal will be in my answer. Now, it's just about doing the math and seeing what I get and seeing what I get for the division. So I'm thinking of this as 29 into 458.2. So 29 will go into 45, I think, 2 times. Nope, I don't think so, actually. Let's take that back. 1 time, because that would be 2 times would be 60. Yes, so that's not close to 60. So 29, do some subtraction. Let's see, that gives us a 6. That becomes a 1, and then we have an 8. So let's see here, you'd go in, that's about 3, so 3 times 5 would be about 150, so I'll put a 5 right here, and so let's see here, that's 5, 145, and so now I do the subtraction again, so I should put down the 8 there. Alright, so we have 3, 2, good. So if this number is smaller than that number, you've made a mistake. But 2.9 or 29 is larger than 23, so that's good. And then I bring down a 2. And again, I'm trying to think here. This is about 3. And so if this is about 3 going into about, looking at this 23, I'm thinking about 8 because 3 times 8 is 24. Guess and check. Let's find out. And so here I'll get a 2. And then that's 7. 16 plus 7 is 23. And what a coinkadink. It all worked out. 0. I'm done. This is my final answer. 15.8. I'll do one more example just to kind of show you how this can get really tricky. So our final example here is 0.0506 divided by 0.044. So make it a long division problem. 0.044 goes out here, and then 0.0506 goes there. Now, observe. I need to bump this over 1, 2, 3 spots. So I'm really looking at the number 44. I got to bump this over 1, 2, 3 spots. So really, I'm looking at 50.6. So 44 into 50.6. So 44, we go into 50 one time. And so that gives me 44. Bring that down. I'll get 66. I'm going to do that. And then this can go in again one time. So 44. Do my subtraction. And here I'll get 22. And now here's the thing. If we keep going, there's an infinite number of zeros I can call upon to drag on down here. And so let's see what happens here. Alright, so 4 goes into 20 about 5 times, so I'll try 5. And so I'll get 0, carry a 2, and actually it works out quite well just like that. That becomes 0. That means I'm now done, and my answer is 1.15. So that's a nice little summary of how to do operations with decimals. It's all about going to those core ideas again, so let's swing back here. Addition and subtraction, you got to line everything up vertically and then add and subtract normally. Multiply, count spaces after the decimal, and that's how far the decimal goes from the right when it's all said and done. And for division, you got to bump the decimal over so your divisor is not a decimal anymore, and that puts the decimal in the final answer. After that, it's normal addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Good luck with your homework, and let me know if you have any questions.